Welcome, everybody, to the Conscious Evolution Media Network with your host and founder, Coach Steve Toth. And I am very excited to introduce our guest, Madison Harper. She's joining us from the UK, and she is an author, a coach, a personal development expert, and I'm sure a lot more, which we're going to learn about in this next hour. But before we do, we must ask the key question. If I took all those titles away, Madison, and all the other titles that you have ever been called in your entire life, what's left? Who is Madison Harper, like, really?
Well, I think the first thing I am, and I've realized this recently, is that I'm a light being having a human experience, not the other way around. So I look at myself as an extension of that greater universal energy and just simply a messenger, quite honestly.
Fantastic. Good answer. So tell us. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I've got a question for you and your listeners. Will you be my Valentine?
Yes! Happy Valentine's Day!
Thanks.
Somebody
I
already
have
called
Valentines.
Somebody already called me this morning and wished me happy Valentine's. It was so nice. It was early in the morning, so I wasn't completely awake yet, but it was still great. So happy Valentine's, Madison.
Thank you.
This is an interesting holiday because I can't say I'm a European. I was born in Europe, and we don't have that there.
Yes. It's all about love. It's all about the heart. Let's make it into something good, and instead of chocolate lollies, let's make it into spreading love.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed that I recently has changed the shape of the Earth. Because it used to be flat. It used to be flat. It used to be round, and now it's heart-shaped. I believe if enough people believe that, it will come into reality.
Of course.
Okay, so tell us a little about yourself. Just bring us up to date. Where is Madison Harper has been, and how did she get here into this present moment?
Well, I've always been very focused on my roles, which was basically the first question you've asked me. And I always saw myself as one of those high achievers, and I worked in business and marketing for years. And I always knew I wanted to have some contribution to the world, and I never was quite sure. And it was only because I had a failed business that I realized what I truly wanted to do. During that business, I had a fashion business, and I really loved doing the media aspect of it, and it made me realize that communication and putting messages out there to really inspire people, not to tell them how to live their life, but to guide them in a way that they find their own solutions, was really exciting for me. So I started looking at doing one-on-ones, and then I was doing a lot of speaking around the world, and then, of course, my latest book is where I am at this point in time. And who knows, if you ask me that next year, I'll probably be at a very different point in time, because as you know, the energy shifts so quickly, and it's already passed 2 seconds ago. So.
Yes, it does. Well, I don't worry about the past or the future. I'm only present to the right now.
Yes, which is a beautiful thing, and it's one of our biggest gifts.
Right, and all there is right now is you and I.
Exactly.
And the viewers. So you are kind of a fascinating person to me because you chose something, and this is something I also learned just by doing what I do, which in a way I kind of feel that our network is a personal development laboratory.
Yes.
And what I noticed is that what we become, like what you became, is someone who is willing to guide people how to manifest what they want to manifest. I would say how to get what they really want, not doing what they must do by what their DNA, their ego, and their mindset tells them in the moment, right?
Yes.
So in order for you to
essence of what they want.
Yeah, the essence, the real essence. Yeah. So in order for you to do that, obviously you have to first be able to do it for yourself,
Of course.
and I believe that you do. But then I also believe that the opposite of it had to exist, meaning you have a master's degree in how to get to where you are today by first experiencing the opposite of what you're living right now. What do you think about that?
Well, I learned that we do live in a duality-based world, and sometimes, and I thought that sucked because I wanted my duality to be happier and very happy, happy, very happy. You know, that's how I wanted the shift to go, not happy depths of despair. So that's part of our choice to come back and have that human experience, is to have that duality. But in the have-not, it makes the having a whole lot more fun and joyous, and I find I'm a lot more grateful for things. As you said, it's taken me a while to get where I got, and this personal development journey has been for me for the last 12 years, and I had challenges along the way, and my biggest challenge was ego. I had to release that ego, and quite honestly, if I hadn't released the ego to the extent that I can, because of course I'm a human and I'll always have that hungry monster at me, I probably wouldn't have been given the opportunity to do the work that I'm doing now to the extent that I am, because you can't have ego and truly be of service from the heart.
Yeah, that's well said. So you said a couple of things that I'm really intrigued by. One is that actually the personal development word is something that's, for me, it's been really beat up, so I changed it to self-evolution.
Love it.
Everything that we do now is for me, since our network is called Conscious Evolution Media, everything is about evolution. It's really, I don't think we're going to be doing much evolution regarding how we look as human beings. I think we're done in terms of our development. I don't think this is going to change that much, right? We're going to continue to have 10 fingers, 2 ears, 2 eyes, and all that. But where evolution is heading, I feel it's heading towards becoming awake and becoming conscious. And on that journey, becoming as conscious as we are capable of becoming. But it's an experience. It's a learning experience for all of us, including myself. So you mentioned the other thing that intrigued me, which is you said ego. And a lot of people I'm finding a lot of misunderstanding of what the ego is. So let's make it a little bit more clear, shall we?
Yes. Well,
What
I
is
mean,
it
if
for
you
you?
hear some people's definitions, they'll actually say it's edging God out or edging source out or whatever that beautiful big energy is that you believe in. And the way I speak with my clients about it, it's like being a hose connected to the universe, but when we pinch it off with our fear, worry, doubt, and also those aspects of who we think we should be in this world, we're actually pinching off that energy, because we're actually never disconnected from that wider energy source. We just choose to pinch it off, and that's when we feel alone and like we have to do everything on our own, which is so exhausting when we do everything on our own, when we have access to such greater consciousness and energy. So that's the way I look at ego. Some people would look at ego as having a bit of an attitude and being a bit fond of themselves, but I look at it as pinching off that universal energy connection.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about Hollywood, that's probably what we're talking about. They love to have fun with their egos, and the way I describe it really is that I feel that ego is here to protect us.
Okay.
Where things go a little haywire is when we give the ego the key to the car, like we give it to the teenager, and go, good luck.
And
Hopefully I'll see you
ride.
tonight or tomorrow. But actually what ends up happening when we leave the ego unmanaged is that it will go absolutely crazy to the end of the earth to come up with all the possibilities that we have in our memories, in our minds, of all the information that's stored, all the things that happened to us, and all the things that we needed to be protected from. And it runs our programming. So the real self, like who we really are, like the magnificent Madison Harper, as I'm experiencing her right now, doesn't get to show up.
No, that's right.
So it's really about,
check it
for
in
me,
the door.
yeah, it's about managing the ego.
Yes.
Not to say that it's
Absolutely.
a bad thing. It's there to make sure that we truly do live moment to moment, but the ego doesn't need to have full control. It needs to be managed.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it's having an awareness to manage it as well, because some people don't even know what's going on. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest keys to helping yourself grow is having awareness, because without that, you can't identify when things like ego or those other attributes are coming up that aren't serving you. And you just keep going on your merry way and you wonder why you're so unhappy. So I think awareness is a big key in that aspect.
Yeah, I feel that whoever created us, and this may sound weird. I think
Go on.
I think whoever created us, this was like, for them it was like, you know how we create games these days, and then the way the games are created is that you get to go to the next level if you solve the game.
Yes.
So it almost seems to me that our creator has created this game called life, and it has lots of levels, and we get to unlock these levels as we go along, and it gets more interesting the more games we unlock. And the big game really starts when we become aware. It's like
Absolutely.
a whole different version of the game that the rest of the people that are playing the game don't even understand it. Do you get it?
Oh, I totally get it. And
they
I like
can't
that
play.
level analogy. No, exactly. Or what they think, and what people say to me sometimes is, oh, but I've done so much work. When does it end? And I'm like, when you die. And even then for half a second until you go into the other levels. So I think people are hoping that we're going to have this point where we're perfection. And the fact of it is we're already perfection in this very second. And
yes, including our non-perfections are perfect,
exactly.
Medicine. It's just perfect, just the way it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And matter of fact, the problem and the issues come up for people when they're not okay with how things are in the moment. That's what's beautiful about the moment, is that it is perfect just the way it is. If it was supposed to be different, people, it would be. It isn't. It is the way it is. Accept it.
And I think that's what people are challenged by. They can't accept it. They think, going back to that have and have not, in their mind they think, I'll be happy when. And in the moment of not having, it creates that anxiety in them. Instead of being grateful for what we have and really expanding that state to attract more of it. And I think that's the challenge for people.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm wondering, and of course this is a fascinating conversation, because what you're talking about really is manifesting our reality and then also being responsible and being accountable, which those two words, kind of responsibility and accountability, have disappeared from human existence.
Yeah.
It's like people are playing this game, which is, oh, there's all this stuff going on in the world, and I am a victim of it all. There's
Who's going to fix it? Who's going to fix it?
I have no control. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to exist, people, moment to moment, day to day, week to week. I have no power, Everybody else, the president, the government, all these industries, they have all the power. I have nothing.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm just going to crawl up in my bed and go to sleep and wake up tomorrow and do the same thing because there's nothing else I can do.
Sad, isn't it? So sad.
You know how I know this so well?
How?
I've been there, done that.
Of course, we all have. And it's so disempowering when we do that to ourselves. And I think it's probably one of my biggest challenges when I hear, the government's got to fix it, my spouse has got to be better, the boss is, he drives me crazy. It's his fault that I'm not happy and I haven't got the promotion. And I really feel like we're giving our power away. But when people think that something or somebody outside themselves is going to fix the situation, I always ask them to look at the perspective of oneness, because we are all truly one. So if we're saying something outside ourselves needs to fix it, well, we're at one with them, so that really means we need to fix it. And
good point.
And I really, and I love there's a ancient Hawaiian tradition called the Ho'oponopono, and they talk about
very familiar with it.
That if something comes into your consciousness, say you're watching the news, which I try and avoid a lot of the time, or a friend is telling me something that's challenging in their life, it's not there for me to think, oh, well, that's their issue. As soon as it comes into my consciousness, because we are one, they start doing a cleansing process of, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And it's cleansing within me to clear the situation, because then as within, so within as without. So I love that concept that we are responsible for things outside ourselves, and as soon as we realize that, I really think we can make the world a better place, because otherwise everybody's waiting for somebody to do something, and it's kind of not happening.
Yeah, because medicine, it wouldn't show up out there if it already didn't exist within us.
Absolutely. It wouldn't have come to present to us within us. So it's kind of a good indication, and this is again where awareness comes in. If something's coming in and you're talking to your best friend about how her husband's a challenge, then there must be something within you that has attracted it. So you're doing both of yourselves a favor by taking care of it from within you, because then it expands from without.
Yeah. See, I have told people a million times that we are a mirror.
Yes.
And we should thank the people that are our mirrors in our lives to show us what it is that we need to transform within ourselves to become a better human being. But I've got accused of, if I say that thing just one more time, it is just such a cliche. And it's funny because the people that are saying these things to me are the people that are really not paying attention. Yeah. They're not paying attention that they just pointed the finger either to me or to somebody else. They need to fix whatever it is they need to fix or straighten up before they can be happy and they can have their lives exactly packaged the way they wanted it. Exactly.
And that mirror is always there for each and every one of us. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I want to smash the mirror. That's not me. That can't be me.
Yeah.
That's when I get a blow to the
too.
ego. That's when ego comes in.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so here's something that also fascinates me, and that's about beliefs and limited beliefs. Let's talk about that a little bit. So where do these beliefs come from that people are actually living their entire life out of?
Yes. Well, I think people really need to start looking at where their thoughts and beliefs are coming from, because a lot of the time they find out they've got nothing to do with them. It's almost a form of osmosis. So they see it in the media, they believe it, they hear it from a school teacher or a parent or a colleague, and they believe it. And I really think it's important to almost have an exercise for a period of time, even a week, of where you're monitoring every thought and thing that is coming out of your mouth and really questioning, does it belong to me or someone else? And that's why I love actually working with values, because it helps people identify what's important to them, and then they realize that some of their beliefs are somebody else's values and way of structuring. So I think these beliefs can be exhausting as well, because they can run you down. If you're running someone else's program, that's not fueling you and fulfilling you. So you've got to ask sometimes, if it doesn't feel good, if there's a part of your life that doesn't make you feel happy, whose program are you running?
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, I agree with that, but I would say I would take it a step backwards. Mm-hmm. Even catch the conversation inside our heads and question it before we even say it.
Mm-hmm. So it's very monitoring thoughts, because the thoughts are what's preempting what's coming out of our mouth. So very much catching that. So it's awareness again, conscious.
Yeah, because I'm noticing, that all this information and our self-talk, and where I am today with my evolution, is that it's disappearing more and more. Like the conversation, because I have told my ego so many times, thank you for sharing that, but at the moment that's no value to me. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And it will be based on...
say, I'm the boss of you.
Yeah, and it's going to be based on what's in the best interest and the highest interest of me, not you. And I had periods of times where my self-talk has actually disappeared for weeks at a time, which was really an interesting experience, because it's like, what the heck? There's silence all the time. This is highly unusual. But it's actually fantastic. It's when I do my best work.
And that's what I was going to say. The other side of that monkey mind, which is all that chatter that goes in our mind, and monitoring that, that's the other side of it. When we create some clarity and we create the blank space for that universal energy to work through us and create inspiration. And that's, as you said, you do your best work, and you're probably really inspired by that work, and you're excited, and it doesn't seem like work. And I think that that's the beauty of the opposite side. That's the real advantage of taking the time to sift and sow, is probably the best way of saying it.
Yeah, I would say if it seems work, if life seems to be work, we're not doing it right.
I mean, if you think most people's biggest outcome for the day is to get to 5 p.m. and get home to the packet of chips and the remote control, and because they want a treat from the work of the day, and it's sad, because we're not creating and existing from our heart. And that's another reason why we should be looking at why we're doing that work in the first place, because it could be somebody else's beliefs or program. I mean, I know a friend who, in their culture, the only jobs you have is doctor, lawyer, and accountant. So that's pretty limiting, and if they follow that path, no wonder they're not fulfilled and unhappy, if it's not of their first essence and choice.
Yeah, so Madison, how can we inspire people to get out of their heads and get into their hearts? What do you think the key is to that?
Well, I joke and I say that the mind is so 1980s, and I think...
Old school?
So old school, so old school. And we need to
and so boring.
So, it's exhausting. The mind is exhausting. And if you think about it, it's what we are really revered for in this society. People say, oh, they're so intelligent and they're so sharp and they're so smart. Nobody goes, oh, they're so intuitive or amazing or in touch. And I think we need to start really rewarding that type of behavior. And I often say to clients that the heart is the new mind. So we have to shift from the constant thinking and almost start looking at the world through the heart. And I think if you start
and the
doing that,
perfectionism. Don't you think perfectionism in this country, I don't know about other countries right now, but in this country, it's a huge disease. There's a lot of people that have it, and
yes.
I feel, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know. I feel sad because trying to have everything to be perfect is not a possibility. So they are like
chasing the carrot.
Hurting.
It's
painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
They are hurting themselves. It's like, stop. It's perfect just the way it is. Stop chasing something that doesn't even exist, and it will never come into existence.
And I think that that's a challenge for some people when they're following their purposeful work, because it's so embedded in their heart and they want to make sure it's perfect before they get it out there. And it was a personal struggle I had. I thought, well, there's certain elements that have to be perfect, and I just thought, you know what, you can keep and wait and wait and wait until it's perfect, and you'll never get the message out there. And I don't think that's the point. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm doing the best that I can for right now, and I'll evolve and grow as well as it's meant to be.
Yeah, I actually have a good example that comes up for me right now from the motivational speaking industry. Remember, for years, what was important to that industry is that the delivery, first of all, it began with how you look. Mm-hmm. So you have to look absolutely perfect. The perfect suit, the perfect dress, the perfect hairdo, the perfect everything first. So it was all about image. And then the words that you spoke and how you spoke them and it became an art, a science. Like you had to deliver it so well that that's what moved, touched, and inspired people. That it was so good that people said, "Oh, well, this is the perfect motivational speech." And I have a few people that I have in mind that I will not mention their name, that definitely have achieved that level. But guess what's happening? That's no longer enough, because people don't want to be touched, moved, and inspired by that anymore, because it's not even real. People get it. They just go like, oh my God, this is a manufactured speech, and I can't connect to it because the person isn't making themselves available to me. They're not open. They can't touch my heart because they are on this trip of making this thing a perfect delivery.
And I can 100% relate to that, because in the past that was me. I had to have everything organized, rehearsed, and I realized something, that we all have been to those motivational seminars, and we're there and we're so excited and we're really gung-ho, and then we get out and it all goes back to how it was 2 days before. Nothing actually gets implemented.
Spent $1,000, and 2 days later, business is as usual.
Exactly.
But we did feel good. For the $1,000, we did feel good for a couple of days.
And exactly, and that's beautiful unto itself. But I realized something, and it was a request that was made of me by the universe, that they've now told me that when I do my talks, I'm not to go in prepared. I can have no slideshows, no props, nothing. I have to go in, I have to connect, and I will download the perfect message for the people in front of me. Just like now our conversation is relevant and downloaded for the people who are listening to us today. And I realized that the reason why they wanted me to do that is because I'm making an energetic and heart connection that allows us to switch on the lights in everybody's cells. Whereas before, the information was just being pushed at people, and it was almost like rebounding off them. It wasn't sinking in. So I think what you're saying is very true. If we're communicating in this way, we've got to communicate through light and from the heart. And I think that's when we make a true difference, not manufactured, because it's really just a show, because that's probably one of the beginning aspects. And I know I'm being authentic when I feel a sense of joy within me. When I'm being inauthentic, there's usually something in my essence that is like a blip, thinking I'm unhappy or I'm angry, or there's some sort of that duality that I don't enjoy that's happening. So I think from the first point, it's knowing when I'm authentic, so those are the tools I use. But for me, when I'm dealing with somebody else, it's an energetic exchange. And if I feel it's more than what's coming out of their mouth and what they're presenting. As you said, they can present the perfect package, but if they're not being inauthentic, you can actually feel it within you if you've heightened your senses to receive that information.
Okay. So before I expand on that a little bit, I just want to share some of my experiences in the industry. So like I mentioned to you before, that this network has been like a laboratory, and what I've noticed that a lot of people in our industry, and this includes therapists, psychologists, motivational speakers, you name it, life coaches, all of them, and I've had thousands of them come through this network, is that a lot of people in our industry are able to, or claim, that they can teach other people this stuff, but they can't teach it to themselves, meaning they can't walk the talk.
Yes. I have a challenge with this, and that's what my latest book's all about. It's actually saying the reason why people haven't succeeded is because they're following someone else's formula. And I actually said the book is not a prescription on how to do your life. It's a guide to help you find your own recipe. And also what we think, like you said, first of all, if they can't do it for themselves, they shouldn't really be teaching it to someone else. But the other aspect of it is, even if they have figured out the perfect recipe, it's the perfect recipe for them. And I think it's a little bit cheeky to be pushing our formulas on other people. So, yeah, I agree.
Well, of course, the biggest names in the industry have done it, and I call it, they ended up making a formula, and the formula has become what I call Kool-Aid, and they want people to drink the Kool-Aid.
Of course. I mean, I think that they can have, look, I believe that we should look at those resources as inspiration and then use that to see what it sets off within us, so that we can go and then look at where our path needs to go. So that's the way I look at those resources, because thank goodness we're all messengers, and some people might like listening to you or I, or not, and they prefer another messenger. And I think that that's the most important thing, that we're all saying the same thing in reality a lot of the time. We're just different strokes for different folks. Yes,
and I agree. It's if somebody says that this is the only way to do something, or to become awake and become conscious, I would start running, because there are many ways to do it, and I feel it's up to the individual on the receiving end to use their due diligence, to use their intuition, to use their higher self or new self, to check it out, to make sure that using this tool or this modality, is it really in the highest and best interest of who they are? It's our responsibility to choose it.
And my friends even say this, that I don't go and sit with them and give them advice. I usually ask a lot of questions. And through those questions, they tend to come up with their own answers, which is far more powerful than me telling them what I should be doing. If I want to be of true light to somebody, I just need to hold them in their highest light, so that I'm always encouraging them. And encouraging them doesn't mean telling them, you should do what I did, because it worked perfectly. I can share my experiences, but I'm not their creator of their journey.
Yes, I agree. So the only purpose and reason that I ask people to share their experiences, because I feel that those experiences that we've all had are very powerful. And when it gets out into the world, there are people that are going to be watching and listening, and they can identify themselves sometimes in your sharing or your story. And they go, oh my God, it's like a transformation can occur in a moment when we provide that kind of value and we're being that kind of service to people. Now, I've talked about this before. I respect Oprah, a lot. I actually said it on one show one time that I'm going to become the male version of Oprah. But here's the thing, is that Oprah has never really shared herself. This is just a recent thing that she's getting into, but for over 20 years she has created a media image who Oprah is, and she has become very masterful how to get other people to share their story, share their pain or share their experiences. But Oprah would never do it herself. What do you think about that?
Well, I noticed in her last few seasons, she seemed to do more of that and seemed to show a lot more
she's opening up.
belief.
Yeah, she's opening up.
Absolutely. And I thought that was excellent.
But it's taken her 20 years, Madison.
Yeah, I know. And I think, but that's what it is. She, I believe, was probably also caught up in that, what you said, that manufactured package, and you can't say what you think because you're the journalist and you've just got to interview without having your own thoughts and placed on other people. But I did notice that recently she has been doing that. And I think it's a challenge for a lot of people, not even just journalists. I know with myself sometimes that I have to be wary that I don't shut myself down and I do share parts of my life because, as you said, our struggles are other people's. It makes us real, and it makes us people realize that they can also overcome challenges. But apart from that, I don't want to be separate. And by shutting down and keeping my stories to myself and my experiences to myself, I'm becoming separate, and that really runs in the face of that oneness that I'm really trying to achieve this lifetime.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And in addition, I wanted to ask you earlier when you were talking about duality, and I missed it, but there was a nice shiny object there, and I didn't pick it up, but I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
So do you think there is a way out of duality, and if there is, what is it?
Well, as I said, my way of looking at duality, I would like instead of being love, hate, I would like it to be love, and more love. I want my little thing just to go up and down like that. I think that we are here as part of that human experience, and that the duality is par for the course. And I also think the best way to look at duality and make friends with it is to understand it, that it's not good or bad. And I think that's what people are really thinking when they're thinking duality. Love is wonderful, hate is horrific. But without it, we wouldn't know the extent of the other. And a very good friend of mine, she had a childhood that had great poverty. And she said she'd never change it for the world because the poverty has given her great abundance now. So I think when we make friends with it, instead of looking at the duality like the good and the bad and there's an enemy in there, I think we find it a lot easier to deal with.
Wow. Well, we just got featured on Blog TV, so thank you. Thank you to Blog TV, to the webmasters, to putting us on the front page. So our viewership just gone up by another 500 on the network. So let's make it worthwhile. So let me explore something with duality. And I just want to describe a little concept to see what you think about it. So something that we're really all good at as human beings is to take duality and have the opposites fight each other. Like, let's have love and hate fight each other. Let's have peace and war fight each other. Let's have drugs and war against drugs fight each other. So we're really good at that as human beings, right? And we also know that we don't get results, or if you get results, they're usually pretty ugly, right? But we keep doing it because we don't have anything else to do. So what about, instead of doing that, we'll create a triangle, and we'll still have in one corner the good, the other corner the bad. I'm just giving one example. You can use this for anything. And so what would be the third corner in the triangle? So I'll help. So what would be the third corner in the triangle is our higher self, and it would be the version of us that's really came here to create something and accomplish something. Like, I believe that we all came here to something to learn and something to teach to all other human beings. So once we can connect to that, and most people call that our passion, but that's another word that's been beaten up. So let's just call it our new self. So now we got good, bad, new self. So try this out. So instead of having the good or bad, the energy of good or bad fighting, open up, and instead of having the energy fight each other, point it to your new self and use the energy that in the past we used against each other in duality. Use that same energy to now create something from your new self. What do you think of that?
And I think that when you first brought up that triangle, and I thought, gosh, what is the other point? It came to me as it's being our truth. And our truth is our higher existence.
Yes.
Because
yes.
What amuses me is that sometimes people say to me, but you don't watch the news? And I'm like, no. And they said, but how do you know what's going on out there? And I thought, well, I know what's going on out there by the reflection of what's going on inside me. And I don't need to know about the war and all of that sort of stuff. I can still create improvement in the world by not being traumatized by it. And then people will say, but that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. That's what's going on out there. And I'm like, but whose truth is it? It's not my truth. Because I don't need to have that duality play out within me to create a state that doesn't have to be a non-growing state. So I think that that's an opportunity. The duality always gives us an opportunity to observe and grow and really flourish. And to me, that's living our truth and being of truth in essence.
Well, and how do we know what truth is? It's very subjective. And we all have seen movies before, haven't we, where they have showed us that news can be manufactured. And
no.
It doesn't
You're
have
lying.
to be real, but everybody will believe it. And
Yeah.
as soon as everybody believes it, it is real.
That's right. And that's how the mass
But it's just an
consciousness is
illusion.
created. And that's the mass consciousness. And that's what is worrisome, because if we go back to where we started in the beginning of people saying, well, who's going to fix that? The mass consciousness has created it. So we need to fix it by changing the mass consciousness thoughts and
Within
beliefs
us.
and not buying into all
Yes.
that.
Yes. It's so for me, the bottom line is, medicine is that everybody knows the truth for themselves. And that's the only truth that we all need to be concerned about. Don't concern yourself with other people's truth, because it's none of our business.
I was
Right?
just going to say, the best way to do things is just mind your own business. That'll help.
Okay. Well, fantastic. All right. So we have lots of people. Let me check into some of these chat rooms and see what's happening. Okay. Yes, it is live, Harvey. Don't worry. People are so worried. We're in all these networks, and people are always worried about, is this live or is it not? Like, what difference does it make? You know, if I'm watching something and I'm intrigued with what's going on, I am interested in the content. I couldn't care less if it's live or it isn't live. It doesn't make any difference. But isn't it funny how people just get, what's the word I'm looking for? Like people are always looking for there has to be something wrong with everything. So the glass is like looked at from it's half empty versus half full. Well, what could be good about this that I'm watching right now? See if I'm getting a response. See if I'm getting a reaction. Okay. Well, we're getting activities, of course. They talking about the Freemasons and all of that stuff. So
that's a whole other show.
We're getting to the Illuminati. That's how our viewers are getting fired up.
Wow.
Are you guys from Austin? Because you just made things a lot more weirder. No, we're not from Austin. Actually, Medicine is from England, and I'm from Denver. So there you go. All right, so some good questions would be good. Like you guys could really ask us some good questions that would provide more value to our viewers, and we could serve people better than asking silly questions and giving us silly comments. All right, Medicine. So guess what? Our show is almost over. We got 10 minutes left. Sure. Did it feel like that it's almost been an hour, or did it feel like to you just a few minutes?
A few minutes, and plus there is no such thing as time, so.
A lady after my own heart. Yeah, time is an illusion.
It is an illusion.
When you're in the present moment, time doesn't exist. That's one of the ways we can actually check to see if we're in the past or in the future, because time only lives in those realms.
Yes, it is.
So if you're wondering, am I in the past, if the information that's coming to you from your mind, and it has to do with what happened to you, last week, last month, last year, 10 years ago, yeah, you are in the past.
And I think I've heard somebody say that depression is anxiety about the past, and anxiety is fear of the future. So we only really we want to be joyful, we have to be present.
Yeah, so we got Harvey is giving us some comments. You only think you're awake. No, actually I think I'm the only one awake. I know Medicine is awake, and I know thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, even in the millions. I don't know them all personally, but there are millions of people on this planet that are awake and conscious. It's not only me. It's not, I don't have, I'm not the only person on this planet. Matter of fact, there are lots of gurus that are way ahead of me. So, especially if we go to India, I mean, there are gurus there that, they don't even concern themselves with planetary life.
Absolutely. And there's some great gurus sitting at home with their families as well.
Yes. The guru is all within us. So, what would you like to share with the viewers? Let's pick something from your life.
Probably the thing that we were just talking about, the gurus, because I actually really encourage people to access their inner guru. And in my last book, it's one of my chapters, but I was saying that I probably could have written a whole book on accessing the inner guru. And it's really understanding that every bit of wisdom or knowledge or answer is actually within us, and we can tap into it. So that's probably been the biggest change I personally had in my life, and when I've been dealing with people, was getting them to tap into the higher self.
Okay, so how about a personal experience? I can't wait to hear you sharing yourself. Share something where you transform something in your life.
Okay, so I've always been a workaholic. I've always been somebody who works hours and until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I got to the stage where, it was about 18 months ago, I was extremely burnt out, energetically burnt out. And I'd never quite got to the success that I had coveted. And what the success meant to me was being able to be a messenger to a wider audience. And at that time when I was burnt out, it was like the universe was inviting me to do things in a different way. And if I didn't do it in a different way, then I could have had more of the same, more exhaustion, lack of fulfillment. And I decided for once to take them up on their offer. And when I asked kind of what the change had to be, they asked me if I was willing to work for Source instead of myself. And in that moment, I got a new boss. So what I did every morning was have that morning meeting with Source, and every morning they would tell me what activities I had to do, which was about a tenth of the activity I would have had to have done if I was thinking from my head. And all of a sudden, I found that things became very easy, and things were flowing to me, and I wasn't having to push so much energy out to try and achieve something, that I actually used probably a tenth of the energy to receive. And that was probably the biggest transformation I've had, just making life easy for myself, but also far more joyful, and it was accessing that inner guru.
Yeah, fantastic. Yep. So since we still got a few more minutes, I'm going to share one of mine. And one of mine, this is probably the biggest transformation that I had, is when let me see which one I want to pick. This is probably the biggest, which has to do with, I was a big gambler a long time ago, more than a decade ago. And I pretty much was on the destruction path of my life. And I got to a point where I was at the end of my rope. I lost everything I've had. I had absolutely no money left, but I still had a 745i BMW. I was actually in the casino, and in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, I ended up calling Gambling Anonymous because I didn't know what else to do. I needed to talk to somebody, and I talked to her for a couple of hours. It didn't really help me. So I proceeded to get into my Beamer and go on the top of the mountain, and I considered killing myself, because I said to myself that if I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and do the same stuff that I've been doing after years after years after years, creating the results that I have created, I was absolutely disgusted with my gambling. And I destroyed every relationship, everybody I loved, and everybody that I loved that loved me. I destroyed. It cost me those relationships, and it still wasn't enough to make me stop. So what was enough to make me stop is that I put my own life in my own hand and said, and this is like when we make a choice, I either choose to live or I choose to die. But if I choose to live, there is a condition, and the condition is that I will not gamble anymore. So I chose to live, obviously, because I'm talking to you, and I chose not to gamble anymore. And the following day, which was exactly 9 years ago, is how this network was born.
Yeah. Brilliant. Out of those challenges come the greatest of outcomes. So that's great. You needed to have that. That was duality.
That was part of my journey, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, all of that stuff that happened, it wasn't really bad. I see it now. It was what was part of my journey to get to where I am today.
Yes. And I think when we stop labeling things as good or bad, as you're saying, and we just see it as it is, it really takes a load off life, because we're not so worried about all these things happening to us.
Absolutely. So actually, I'm not going to type, but people want to put links into our chat rooms, and we don't allow links. Sorry, because you guys abused it to no tomorrow. So no links, thanks. So, Edison, we still have some time to have you share about your business, about some of the things that you're doing right now. Share how our live viewers or the archive viewers will be able to get to you if they would like to work with you.
Yeah, great. So probably the best way to access me is via my website, which is madisonharper.com, and that's MADISEN, Harper, HARPER.com. And what I'd like to share with your viewers is that I'm launching my latest book on Amazon on February 20th. And if they buy on that day and then return to my website, they get about $1,000 in free downloadable personal development gifts. So there's a little incentive for them to live a limitless life, and the book is called Limitless, 10 Energy Accelerators to Access Your Infinite Potential. So I'd love to gift them with all those amazing resources.
Fantastic. So how do you feel, Madison, how people can generate themselves with limitless possibilities? How is that done?
I think, yeah, there's a few stages. They have to be willing to build a foundation first, because a lot of people, they're out there trying to achieve, but they're building on a rocky foundation. So what I suggest is they've got to look at their values, look at what makes them happy, look at where they get their information from, and is it their information. I ask them to look at life areas and see where they want to achieve the most. So that's very foundation building. And then I want them to be able to tap into that inner wisdom. Some people would say it's your gut feeling, intuition, tapping into source, higher self, whatever it is. I think that's their biggest key to really growing and developing and crafting a life that is their life and not running on somebody else's schedule or script. So I think those are the main aspects of helping people to access being limitless. The other aspect is to not buy into other people's truth, because when they buy into other people's truth, it's limiting them. So for example, I can work with a corporate sales team and they'll say, but we only can hit $100,000 a month. And I'm like, well, according to who? There is greater possibility out there. And I really am inspired by people who don't buy into cutoffs and measurements, because it allows us to dream beyond our wildest dreams. And I always think of, the person who ran that 2-minute mile. After the first person did it, everybody else could do it, because originally it was limiting. So I really inspire people to have a goal and then smash it out of the park by 1,000,000. And that's really where their limitless potential can come in, because often we think we set the bar too low for ourselves and our happiness.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I just want to add something to that to kind of enhance what you described. And it has to do with how our minds operate. We actually spent quite a bit of time on our minds today, and all the information that's in there that can be dangerous. So here's what I have to offer. So if you look at our minds as input and output, like the way we look at computers. Actually, we created the computers from humanity itself. If you look at the computer, it has all the components that a human being has. And it does have a reset button. So do we.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's how it goes. And this is why I love television as a medium, to have it as a platform for people like yourself, Madison, and others to deliver their message to the world. Because human beings are primarily visual. So the way we see the world, which is an input into our mind, and then what we feel based on what we see is another pieces of input into the brain. Now, a lot of people are resisting their feelings based on what they see, which is one of the biggest issues with human beings' ability to